For centuries, history told us the witch hunts were a war against women, and mostly, they were. But some of the faces that burned were men, priests, healers, even scholars. They weren't forgotten by accident. They were erased. Not many remember them now because history prefers simple stories. The innocent maiden, the jealous neighbor, the fire. But the truth was never simple. When fear ruled faith, even men could become witches. In the late 1500s and 1600s, as superstition spread through Europe, the definition of witch began to blur. To the church, a witch was anyone who claimed power that didn't come from God. And power could come from knowledge, from medicine, from questioning authority. That made scholars, healers, and even priests vulnerable. The first known European men executed for witchcraft were priests.
In an age when religion and fear were married, even the clergy could be accused of serving the devil. The logic was simple. If witches existed, and they could curse crops and call storms, surely the devil would want his servants inside the church itself. One of the earliest was Father Louis Gaufridi, a French priest accused in 1611 of seducing nuns through witchcraft.
Under torture, he confessed to signing a pact with Satan and flying through the air to attend sabbats. He was burned alive in Marseille. The church called it purification. To the people, it was proof that even holy men could fall. But not all accused men were priests. Some were scholars, herbalists, and physicians, people who thought differently. And in a world where questioning doctrine was a sin, thought itself could be heresy. Scotland, 1590. King James VI, soon to become King James I of England, sets sail home from Denmark. A storm nearly kills him. When he survives, the blame does not fall on nature. It falls on witchcraft. Within months, dozens are accused of raising the tempest against the crown. Among them a quiet schoolteacher named Dr. John Fian. Fian was said to lead a coven that conspired to murder the king. They claimed he summoned storms, bewitched horses, and wrote his name in the devil's book. He denied it until they crushed his legs in iron boots. Then he confessed everything they asked. He was strangled and burned before the king himself. His screams were said to echo for hours. King James later wrote a book on witchcraft, demonology, that fueled fear across Europe for the next century. A single storm, a single teacher, and a single royal fear birthed 1,000 fires. England, 1645. Civil war divides the country. Famine, plague, and paranoia follow. Into that chaos steps Matthew Hopkins, the self-proclaimed witch-finder general. He hunts hundreds, mostly women, but not only. One of his victims is Reverend John Lowes, an 80-year-old clergyman in Suffolk. Lowes had served his parish faithfully for half a century, but he was outspoken, stubborn, and disliked by powerful neighbors. Hopkins accused him of drowning sailors by cursing ships. The old man denied it, until they tied him and threw him into water. When he floated, they said it proved his guilt. They hanged him the next day. Hopkins earned money for every witch he found. It is said he used scripture to justify torture, calling it God's work. But the truth is simpler. Witchcraft was business. Fear was profitable. Germany, 1628. The city of Bamberg burns with hysteria. Hundreds are executed, rich and poor alike. Among them, the mayor, Johannes Junius. Respected, educated, and outspoken, he laughs at the accusation until the torture begins. They crush his hands, tear his skin, burn him with irons. He confesses to flying through the air and attending sabbats with the devil. From his cell, before his execution, he writes a letter to his daughter, Veronica. "My dearest child, your father is innocent. I must die for others. I have confessed only for fear of pain and torture. God knows I am guiltless." He signed it with broken fingers. Days later, he was burned. The letter was hidden for years, then rediscovered. Proof that reason had drowned beneath fear. We think of witch hunts as a women's tragedy, and they were. But across Europe, historians estimate that between 20 and 25% of the accused were men. In places like Normandy and Finland, that number climbed even higher. Many were caught because they defended accused women, a husband refusing to testify against his wife, a son standing up for his mother, a priest questioning the trials. Each act of loyalty became evidence of guilt. Fear doesn't care who it burns. It only asks for kindling. By the late 1600s, the flames began to fade. Skeptics rose, courts questioned evidence, and people began to see the pattern: confessions from torture, confessions from fear. But by then, the damage was done. Tens of thousands dead. Their names, mostly women, but also men, erased from ledgers and prayers alike. In 1782, long after most of Europe had abandoned witch trials, a man named Jacob Johann Rahn was executed in Switzerland. He was accused of making a pact with the devil to curse cattle. He confessed under pressure, recanted, then confessed again. He was beheaded and burned. It was one of the last official witch executions in Europe. And with his ashes, the witch hunts finally ended. But fear never did. When you look at the witch trials long enough, you begin to see a pattern. The people who died were never chosen at random. They were the ones who made others uncomfortable, those who questioned, who spoke too plainly, who knew too much. For women, that meant stepping outside obedience. For men, it meant stepping outside authority. Either way, the punishment was the same: fire. Every witch hunt begins with the same question: who holds the power here? Because once fear decides that power must come from one place, anyone who claims it for themselves becomes a threat.
Witch hunts were never just about belief. They were about hierarchy. The church needed obedience. Kings needed unity. Communities needed a scapegoat. Accusing witches, men or women, kept that order intact. Fear doesn't care about gender. It only needs believers. Fear, when it cannot understand, seeks control. Control, when it cannot reason, seeks punishment. And punishment, when it cannot find justice, calls itself faith.
That cycle didn't end with the witch hunts. It only changed its costume. Today, we still point at those who think differently. We just choose different fires. So remember them: the schoolmaster, the priest, the mayor, and the countless nameless men who vanished in smoke. Their crime was not magic. It was curiosity. Maybe witches were never about gender. Maybe they were about courage. The courage to face the dark without flinching, to speak when silence was safer. Because whether they were women or men, the witches of history all shared one thing: they refused to let fear decide what was true. And that refusal was the real magic.